Welcome, Annie. Pleasure to reconnect and meet you again. You were at our very first Light Consciousness speaker program that we did, and you're joining us for the Light Consciousness Expo. So we're really happy to have you. You are amazing. She is a life strategist. She's also self-improvement, keynote speaker, and author. She has trained hundreds of people to see their world like never before. She wrote, produced, and hosted a weekly radio show called Lifeline for WJZ Z93, today's best hits.
I'm so grateful. Thank you for inviting me.
I let the angels and guides and from the heart happen, and this is meant to be. And I remember you, and you're a very strong speaker, very clear speaker, and you have a message. You have a message to a lot of people, and there's people who are needing your services. So what I like to do is ask a couple of questions. The first question is, can you share some insights that led you to your awakening?
I had a situation where my life imploded and I was left really with myself and literally isolated for quite a few years. And so what I was left with was really a reflection of that I didn't really have a very good relationship with myself like I thought. And so I picked up my iPhone, and 3 years, I went from being my own worst enemy to my own best friend. Self-talk is my red thread. It's the basis of my method. As I learned to have self-forgiveness, and you're with yourself all the time. The relationship with the self, manifesting all the things that you want is really paying attention to that relationship with yourself. And mine happens to be through helping people cultivate healthier relationships with themselves by actually talking to themselves. So here I am, and it's vulnerable again.
What can people do then help them go deeper? What can they do daily? What can they do that will help them go deeper with themselves?
As much as I wanted to manifest and receive all the blessings that I know are out there, again, it boiled down to feeling worthy of receiving them, right? So I can tell you you're beautiful all day long, you're worthy, but you can only receive it to the degree that you believe it. One of the things that I would like to share with people about looking in the mirror, and even if it's saying good morning, hi, I see you, is what you start when I talk about that self-talk, because emotions, vulnerability, it has words, right? What I help people do just in this small act is you start to notice what you're saying, and that a lot of times you're not being very nice to yourself. You're self-doubting, you're, those kinds of things. That's really normal for all of us. So I often, most every day, I go to say good morning or whatever it is, and then I'm like, I'm sorry.
That's a good one.
I wasn't that nice to you. But what I do is I commit to being kinder and kinder and kinder, and just giving myself that moment to say, hey, you know what? You're okay. And something else someone can add is something to do with self-care, which also cultivates more self-value. So whether it's treating yourself to 5 minutes alone, a short walk, and again, when my goal is to help people become aware and conscious of what their thoughts.
Very important.
So you'll notice, and when I practice with people, what they start to do is, oh yeah, I said, I'm going to take a walk today. And then I heard myself say, you've got too much to do. You're too busy, whatever it is. And so that's like the first step when you start to be able to catch yourself in the act. And then you're like, oh, you know what? I'm sorry.
Forgiveness is very important.
Anything that you can do to cultivate a healthier relationship with yourself.
It goes right back to the relationship.
Every single time. Like, it's the small things, like I say, they add up, because we have these big dreams, but we have this urgency to get there. And the idea is to enjoy the journey,
the unfoldment,
right? And that requires being present. And when you're in the present moment, you're on one hand, you're not anxious about as soon as I lose 20 pounds or as soon as I get my first book out. Then you've got your past, which is all your programs telling you, all that stuff that it tells you. And when you're in the present moment, you're able to focus on what's right in front of you. I've been doing this for 14 years every day. Good morning. And oftentimes, because now what's in my head, I'm more conscious of. So out loud is very important, but I'll say to myself, oh, we got to go have our conversation before the day starts. And then I'll hear myself say, oh, you know what? I think we're fine. And so even after, I mean, I have a great relationship with myself, but if I start ignoring myself
Yep.
and not talk, if you're my best friend and I'd be like, oh, later,
Yep.
we'll talk later. And so it's kind of like gratitude. As you give
Yep.
yourself a minute, it starts on the surface. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I'm so grateful for those warm sheets that I bought myself, or whatever it is. It gets deeper. So when I have these conversations with myself, first I'll say, sorry, I know. But every time I'm done, this happens. I love you. I'm like, I love you too. Thank you. So
Yeah.
it boils down to is it's an inside job. And now I feel worthy of receiving
Yep.
from the universe, from my guides, from my neighbor.
Yep.
And so again, it's just these small things we feel like change is a small, slow process.
Oh, that's true. That's truly true. And
Yeah.
we're excited to have you. And can you talk a little bit about what you'll be speaking about at the Light Consciousness Expo, and a little bit how your book came about?
So I have 2 keynotes. Thank
Yep.
you.
Yep.
My first keynote is The Divine You Starts With You.
Yep.
And again, that red thread of that self-talk. I mean, my goal for everyone is to start to become more aware through this keynote workshop of what that
Yep.
inner you is saying.
Yep.
So it's called The Divine You Starts With the Inner You,
Yep.
and how important that relationship is with the inner you to be able to what I call sustain your happiness, to manifest your destiny. And one of the things that we're going to learn is that happiness takes care of itself when you can manage the lows, the darkness, the negative emotions, all those things. Things are going to happen every day that are going to throw you off track. Always, right? The unexpected, the unknown. A lot of times I've found through my radio broadcast and training people, and even for myself, that it's like, you got to stay positive. You gotta stay this.
Yep.
We're always trying to stay on these high emotions. And that's just not realistic. We're always going to fall off track. Something could be going great, and then the phone rings and somebody hacked your bank account, right? It can be anything. Trying to figure out what you're going to wear today. So what we're going to do in the first workshop also is really just take a look at that and recognize that the more you cultivate that relationship with yourself, those durations of being out of alignment or self-suffering get smaller, and you can get realigned. So it's a lot of energy to try to be aligned and have everything fine all the time, right? And then the second workshop is motivation versus action. And that one, we're going to learn a little bit about the brain.
Yep.
And how, again, we talk about starting that paleo diet, and we talk about writing that book, but taking action is the hard part.
Oh, yeah.
And how, again, our self-talk comes in. And a lot of times, most of the time, we want to be over here, and we need to get back in that present moment and say, right now, we're going to be right here. There's some information I'm going to share on how to be able to take those action steps, because we can be motivated all day long, but I found for myself and many of us that we tend to live on talking about our dreams as opposed to taking some of the action steps that we take. So we're going to visit that. And then you asked me the book.
Yes. What's the name of your book?
Well, the book is called She Grabbed Her White Jacket, and I collaborated with 3 of my nieces, and one took my story and gave it sound and sight and texture and brought it alive. And the other one created the graphics for the cover and the back of the book as well. And then the third one at age 11 wrote a beautiful poem, and she does photography, and that's submitted in the book as well. And the only goal that I had was finishing it,
Mm,
because
yeah.
of those emotions and self-talk and what if it's not good and what if somebody
Yeah.
doesn't, and what if and what if, and I just kept redirecting and saying, we're just going to finish it. It's a fictional based on some truths, and it's a story about a group of kids who join
Mhm.
together and become their authentic selves, and the journey of how they got there. And so it's for kids and adults. So it's really it's like an emotional intelligence story, kind of like the movie Inside Out or Dear Evan Hansen, where they learned how to navigate those emotions
Yep.
and together and shine their light. And so so that was one of my biggest purposes, was to watch my nieces shine as
Mm.
they collaborated and we produced it together. So yeah. And we're getting ready to start book 2.
No, but I think it's amazing. It's really good. And then people need something where they can go and reread it. You know, they read it and then they get more from it after they reread it and they just enjoy it. And
Yeah.
I'm telling everybody who's watching and listening, you want to see her. You're going to get a lot from her, and come
Thank
and meet
you.
her at her booth. Annie, how can people get a hold of you? Do you have a
Um,
website, social media? How can they get a hold
yes.
of you?
Well, and I'm vulnerably going to say, but that's okay, that my website is not complete. It's not perfect, but it's up.
Oh, good. That's all that
So
matters. It's up.
yes, that's all that matters. So you can go to sustainyourhappiness.com,
Okay.
and all one word, sustainyourhappiness.com. And from there, it's you can email, you can get in touch with me there. And that's it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we really appreciate having you, and you are amazing. So we just want to remind everybody, the event for the Light Conscious Expo is in beautiful Sarasota, Florida. And it's February 11th and 12th at the Sarasota Event Center, 600 North Beneva Road. Make sure you come and see Annie. She's going to love to meet you. Make sure you get your selfie and book signed by her. You guys have a blessed day, and thank you so much, Annie, for joining us. And we bless
Thank
you
you, Jerry.
on the
Thank you.
journey, and we're looking forward to having you there. We'll see you
You
in
too.
February.
See you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.